Atari Jaguar Raiden, crack the seal. Raiden or Raiden? Unfortunately, I will switch back and forth during this as I now know it's pronounced Raiden, but I've said Raiden for 30 years. Raiden, which means God of Thunder, is a 1994 port of a 1990 Seibu Kaihatsu created and Tecmo published arcade game. To me, if R-Type is the horizontal shooter that I judge all similar games by, then Raiden is the vertical equivalent. The only copy I ever owned was for DOS way back in the early 90s. I don't remember it playing very well with the Sound Blaster and VGA combination we had. Either the sound would work or the joystick would work, but not both. That was the way of life with DOS gaming back then. I always looked on in awe at the Jag port and wished I had it. Well, I do now. This Jag port was the only vertical flying shooter in the original lineup of Jaguar games, and its legacy seems to have come from first being a Falcon or possibly even a Panther game that was almost finished, put on the shelf, and then re-brought back to life for the Jaguar. Here is the Falcon port. I could get it to work kind of in emulation. Okay, now let's crack the seal on my copy right now. Let's get started by taking a look at the front of the box. This is the Jaguar Raiden box front. This is the Jaguar Raiden box back. Here are the sides, long ways and short ways. My highly technical terms for the sides of the box. Now, this is a version of Raiden that I picked up over the summer in Seattle. And normally on Crack the Seal, we open up games I have not opened and played before. And this is definitely a game I've not opened and played before, but it is not a sealed box. So I don't need my knife for this one. That's okay. I have a lot of games in my collection that are not sealed and that we're going to go through also in Crack the Seal. So technically, it's a Crack the Seal because we're cracking the seal right now. There we are. And we are going to take a look at the contents of the Raiden box. Now, okay, first of all, we have the cartridge. This is the Raiden cartridge. There seem to be two colors of this. One is black and one is gray. This is the black one, I'm pretty sure, or it's the dark gray one, and there's a black one also. And then, take a look at the instructions. It's not a long instruction booklet. This is an 8-page instruction booklet for Raiden. Get your capture. If you want the instructions, capture the screen. No, don't do that. You can get the instructions off of Atari Mania. All that's in here really is a description of the power-ups and the controls. That's about it. On to Jaguar Raiden. Jaguar Raiden. I know this is an exciting screen here with a big blue one, but I have the Jaguar hooked up to the laptop. Here is the Raiden. Let's plug it in. The Raiden. It's Raiden. And it takes a little bit for it to come out. I'm not very good at this. I love games like this. I'm terrible at them. Imagitech were pretty prolific as far as Jaguar developers go, having also been responsible for Bubsy in Fractured Fairy Tales, Evolution Dino Dudes, iWar, Pitfall the Mind Adventure, and Zool 2. According to Shinto, on his Jaguar Game by Game podcast from episode 5, Imagitech was founded in 1986 and the early staff was hand-picked game crackers who used Atari STs for porting games. In 1991, they started with Atari and programmed Raiden as a launch title for the Jaguar. The primary dev was Nigel Conroy. It started out as a CD game for the Falcon and was intended for the Jaguar CD also, but this port was never completed. Imagitech and Atari had a falling out in the mid-90s because of some eternal Atari politics. If you're interested in this game any further, you really should listen to all of Shinto's Jaguar Game by Game podcast number 5. Ironically, Imagitech was purchased by Gremlin, who was then purchased by Infogrames, who was then purchased by Atari or turned into Atari or whatever. Small world. It's interesting to note that sole programmer Nigel Conroy has had a long and prolific career developing games after the Jaguar. Our paths definitely crossed at some point when he did both the Barbie Horse Adventures Mystery Ride in 2003 for Windows and Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses in 2006 for Windows. I worked on the websites for both games. Besides big pink boxes with just a jewel case inside, he also programmed on such franchises as Grand Theft Auto, Midnight Club, and Crackdown. Nigel worked at Imagitech from 1990 until 1994 as senior programmer in their Drewsbury office. This is what Nigel has to say about the experience, directly from his LinkedIn page. This is where I cut my teeth as a fresh 18-year-old programmer, writing various 1632-bit games on various platforms in C and assembly language. I learned a lot along the way, and I had a great time. I've asked Nigel for an interview. He has said he would, but he has not got back to me yet. We'll have his comments on further Jaguar games that we cover. Internal at Atari, this was produced by John Scrutch, who was very prolific and helped launch most of the better Jaguar titles. There's a cheat for this, the Unlimited Lives and Bombs cheat. When you reach the first level boss, hold buttons 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 9, and Option. If you do this correctly, you'll hear the extra ship sound, and then you'll have unlimited lives and bombs. Reviews. Video Game and Computer Entertainment magazine gave it 70%. They said, Raiden isn't a tough game. You may finish it in a day even though your fighter seems slow. But if you like to shoot ships, this game will keep you entertained. GamePro gave it 60%. They said, the time has come to demand more from our megabits. A snoozer like Raiden just seems out of place on a powerful system like the Jaguar. Let's hope Atari gets into the cartridge rental arena soon. Electronic Gaming Monthly, 60%. Raiden is one of the most intense arcade shooters around. The Edge, 50%. Once your ship is heavily tooled up, the action is quite enjoyable. But that enjoyment is short-lived. With frustrating inevitability, it's only moments before a stray bullet or a particular devious enemy robs you of all your hard-won hardware. With such poor game structure and lack of finesse, Atari would have been better getting Imagitech to write an original shoot-up, rather than spending money on such a non-eventful license. It's not that Raiden is a bad game, it's just the wrong game. VGC, 44%. An excellent conversion, but who decided to convert a 4-year-old shoot-'em-up for a pushing back the barriers games machine? Whoever decided to release this needs their heads looking at. Okay, enough of those magazines. What did Atari Magazine say? ST User, 40%. Oops. Raiden would delight players with its graphics and sound capability if it was 1987, but unfortunately it's 1994, and people expect a lot more. If I wanted a piece of classic nostalgia, I would have dug my Spectrum and its games out of the loft. Now let me have a note here. That's not really fair. This is someone at Atari ST user who has played ST games and knows that none of the ST games yet really match up to this game. So it's kind of unfair to say this was like a Spectrum game. I know that's not exactly what they're saying, but it was pretty much better than all the games they had played on the ST up to this point, and pretty much better than most Amiga shooters. Okay, let's move on. ST review. It's amazing what chaos a few dropped bombs can cause, they said, and they gave it 67%. ST format, they were a little bit more impressed. They said there are loads of sprites moving on the screen at once. The game is arcade perfect, and they gave it 70%. The gist of these reviews was that it was a good version of Raiden, but it certainly didn't display the 64-bit power that these magazines were looking for. But the video game critic, of all people, gives it an A-. I think games like this are better reviewed when not jaded by the actual time they came out and instead looked at with fresh eyes. The readers of the site agree, also giving it an A-. Most of the contemporary reviews harped far too much on it not being a 64-bit game showcase or had problems with the arcade game, which is strange and unfair because compared to the other versions or even the PSX, which got mostly great reviews, the Jag reviews seem overly harsh. Most Jaguar fans do seem to like it, and so do I. I'm just terrible at it. Shinto and I, though, do agree. Raiden is a solid game on the Jaguar. Now let's watch to see how far I can get in Raiden. Okay, well, I didn't make it all the way through the game, but it's a good game, and I think any Jaguar fan would love it. In fact, any video game shooter fan would love it. Until next time, into the vertical blank.
Programmed in BASIC, we explored 8-bit worlds. Pixels crashed onto a digital shore. All our records were scratched. Left alone, we were latchkey children, terrified of nuclear war. In the glow of the cathode ray, every game we play on our 2600